Injuries, opt-outs, and fruit. It's the Citrus Bowl. We preview it with Locked On Vols. It's a crossover edition coming up today on Locked On Hawkeyes.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, good Monday morning, everybody, and Merry Christmas. Welcome to Locked On Vols and Locked On Hawkeyes. I'm host Eric Cain, along with Trent Condon, and a very special episode here, Locked On Vols and Locked On Hawkeyes today as we cross over. We look ahead to the Citrus Bowl that's coming up in just 1 week away. This episode is brought to you in part by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/lockedon. Use the promo code LOCKEDON, and you get a first deposit match up to $100. That's daily fantasy sports made easy. So over the course of the next 30 minutes, we're going to talk about main storylines, opt-outs, key matchups, keys of the game, the lines over there at FanDuel Sportsbook, and of course, who have been some big-time opt-outs for this Tennessee offense and maybe this Iowa defense. So let's go ahead and get started. Main storyline, all right, let's go seasons to date first. Tennessee 8-4, Iowa 10-3. Trent, who is this Iowa club? I think from afar, we just sit here and say, all right, bad offense, great defense, low scoring. Tell me where I'm wrong here. Who is Iowa?
Well, I think you certainly hit the bullet points. I mean, it's pretty simple. This is the worst offense in the country, and when you watch it up close and personal, there isn't anything that you're missing there. Not only the worst offense in the country, it is by a far margin. It has been hideous to watch at times. It has been amazing, though, that they've been able to do this and be able to do this really over the last 3 years. You look at the offensive production from this program and what they are and what they be. 3 years ago, they were number 2 in the country in the middle of the season before the wheels fell off and the offense fell off. But it starts with the defense. I mean, that's what you have to know about this squad. They lost a ton last year. They lose Lucas Van Ness to the NFL in the first-round draft pick to the Packers. They lose their middle linebacker, Jack Campbell, a first-round draft pick as a middle linebacker. No, it's not 1987 in 2023. And they lose those 2 guys, 4 other starters, all those guys in the NFL right now, and they come back with another great defense. And that obviously goes to the defensive coordinator and Phil Parker. He, for the first time in his career, won the Broyles Award, something that was well overdue as assistant coach of the year in college football. What he's able to do and do it at a level without an offense that helps him out at all, it's absolutely incredible. But offensively, you think, well, are they going to hit a big play? Is something? No, it doesn't happen. It is as bad as you could possibly imagine offensively. It is, could they make a big run play? That's about it. There's no sustainability in drives. There's no ability to hit big plays. It is a whole lot of yuck out there offensively. So what you see is what you get. If you just know the narratives of Iowa football, they don't lie. They're narratives for a reason. It is very, very ugly on one side of the football and a whole lot of fun on the other. What can you tell us about the Tennessee side and the storylines?
Yeah, if I learn how to do my microphone there, this is not my first podcast. The Tennessee side, if you just think of Josh Heupel and the Tennessee offense the last couple of years, you would think throwing it all over the place, super efficient, one of the best offenses in the country. Unfortunately, that was not the case this year. I mean, it was solid. I mean, it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't a top 10 offense. It was a little bit slower than what it normally is, and it wasn't as efficient as what you've seen with Hendon Hooker the last couple of years with Joe Milton in 2023. Now, Tennessee ran the football really well. Second best rushing attack in the SEC, 12th overall in the country. But Joe Milton is not Hendon Hooker, and the offense just looked a little bit different this year. So a team that was 8-4, and the sky is falling in Knoxville. I mean, you went through 15 years of purgatory, yet 8-4 this year, the sky is falling, and everybody should be fired. Nobody's wanting Josh Heupel to be fired, but it just goes to show you how much fun and how exciting last season was when Tennessee was 10-2 in the regular season, and beat Clemson in the Orange Bowl in the New Year's Six and all that. So a little bit of a disappointing year this year. I think the way Tennessee lost to Missouri was really disheartening. Tennessee was going to always lose to Georgia, but the way Tennessee lost to Georgia was disheartening. Tennessee fell flat on its face early in the season and lost to Florida, where Florida's not a good football team, and so that's upsetting, and you held a 20-13 lead, or you had a 20-7 lead on the road at Alabama at halftime, and you gave it up. So missed opportunities and everything, and I think that's kind of the storyline for Tennessee this year. So we'll see what happens. I do want to mention real quick as we move on here in segment number one, some main storylines for Tennessee would be who's going to be playing. A lot of guys have entered the transfer portal. I'll get to that in a moment, but kind of on those storylines, I think it's, could Iowa see Nico Iamaleava, the prize 5-star prospect at quarterback for Tennessee? At the time of this recording, Joe Milton's planning on playing. It's his home is Orlando. He wants to go back home and play in front of his family and friends. But could we see Nico and Joe play a little bit for Tennessee? I don't think that's too far-fetched. I think Iowa might have to be ready for a little bit of Nico in this football game, which I think could be exciting. But there's been injuries at quarterback, obviously, for Iowa this year, and with the starter out, it's not been good play so far this year for the Hawkeyes, I would imagine.
Yeah, Cade McNamara came in as a starter. He was coming off an injury season a year ago at Michigan. 2 weeks before the season opener, he goes down with the injury as he was just running in an open practice. Our only open practice in August. You get this new shiny object. Everybody's excited. Cade McNamara taking Michigan to the playoff. Here we go. We got a competent quarterback. And then he gets hurt. And he plays injured through the first month of the season, then tears his ACL in the game against Michigan State. And then since then, it has been Deacon Hill, another guy that came in as a transfer, a guy that was at Wisconsin and was number 4 there. Look, this was never a guy that anybody anticipated was going to play. He played and has, frankly, played poorly. He is a turnover machine, fumbles, interceptions. He's got a big arm. He's also a big, big man. He is a lightweight, Jared Lorenzen, if you will, going back in the day. He is a thick boy out there playing the quarterback position. And to be frank, he's just not very good. He's not very talented. Kirk Ferentz, in his stubbornness, decided not to go with anybody else. He has one of the weirdest things with quarterback and making a quarterback change that I've ever seen. In a quarter century now of watching him as the head coach for the Iowa Hawkeyes, I don't know if he was spooked early in his career. Brad Banks was a guy that went on to, in their 4th season as a program, finish runner-up in the Heisman Trophy in 2002. The year before that, though, he was very reluctant to play him over Kyle McCann, who was a fine quarterback, but obviously not the Heisman runner-up. And it's continued during the 25 years. Just a lot of head-scratching ones. You saw Deacon Hill be one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen at the Division I level, and he wouldn't go with any of the young guys. Joe Labus won the bowl game a year ago against Kentucky as a starter. He couldn't get any run. They got a true freshman, 4-star kid from New Jersey, Marco Lainez, never went to him. It's weird. It's confounding. And don't expect to see any of those young guys for us. No, that's not going to happen over in Iowa City. We don't do things like that, except to see the big man, Deacon Hill, out there all 4 quarters, no matter how ugly it gets.
So quarterback play should be a storyline either way. Again, at the time of this recording, expecting Joe Milton to play. But I also think Nico Iamaleava could get some series and could work in there, because I think this would be a great springboard for him to sprint into 2024, and we'll see exactly kind of what that breakdown looks like. But for Iowa, Deacon Hill, 1,096 passing yards on the year, 5 touchdowns, 6 INTs, 49% completion so far this year. Should be the big man Deacon Hill for the Hawkeyes. Hey, when we come back, we are going to take a look at some key matchups. The defense for Iowa, how good is that defense, and who's going to be out there on the field to play? All that and more coming up next right here on Locked On Crossover Edition, Locked On Vols, and Locked On Hawkeyes. I want to tell you about our friends over there at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has found everything you need to maintain your vehicle with leveled up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for at eBay Motors. Plus, with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, you're guaranteed to fit your ride every time. If not, your money is back. With over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll always get exactly what you need for your number one ride or die, because with eBay Motor, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive today at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. More with Locked On Crossover coming up next right here on the show. All right, we welcome back in here to Locked On Vols and Locked On Hawkeyes. I'm Eric Cain, Trent Condon, and we are looking at Tennessee and Iowa in the Citrus Bowl coming up, and that is a week from the day. You can hardly believe it. Want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Now, Tell me how good you talked about your quarterback, Deacon Hill. All right. Tell me how good this Iowa defense is. I mean, coming out of the regular season, these are national ranks, 4th in scoring defense. Let's see here. Yeah. 4th in scoring. I mean, giving up less than 2 touchdowns a game. You're 5th in total defense, 9th in passing defense, 13th in rushing defense. I mean, it's really, really good. What's the strength of this defense, and what are some things that are going to give Tennessee's quarterback some issues in this one?
It's strong all the way through. I think that's where you have to start with things. Now, also the caveat needs to be said. Remember, Iowa played in the Big Ten West. Not exactly a place with a whole lot of high-flying offenses out there. And this is going to be obviously something completely different in Tennessee than they've seen all season long and really over the last couple of seasons. Ohio State runs up tempo. Purdue did under Jeff Brom the year before he departed for Louisville. But it's just not something they've seen a ton. Not a whole lot of great offenses. That does have to be something that you talk about. But you start up front with their defensive line. There's not a star, there's not an edge rusher that's getting to the quarterback, 12, 13 sacks, anything like that. But they are just so fundamentally sound. And it's something, if you're a big football fan, you're a Tennessee fan, and you're watching this game, and you're just like, how? I don't see, there's not like Lucas Van Ness, a first rounder from a year ago. There's not that guy. How do they do that? Look at the way they do simple things, hand placement, the way they line up, the way that they absolutely play fundamentally sound football. It's a little boring unless you're a football nerd, but it is absolutely exquisite if you like to dig deep. That's what Iowa does, and that's what they do up front. Logan Lee, he's a guy, a fifth-year guy, been married for a couple of years. He'll go off and give it a shot at the next level in the league after this season in the middle. Just another one of those fundamentally sound players. Deontay Craig was a little bit of a disappointment. In a reserve role a year ago, he had 6.5 sacks. He's a guy that could get to the quarterback. He's been banged up all year. I'm really interested to see kind of what juice he has up front. Deontay Craig, he's a guy that can get to the quarterback really quick off the edge with some power too. He'll be fun one to watch out there. At the next level, the linebacker crew, Nick Jackson, his 4th consecutive 100 tackle year. He started his career at Virginia, his final season here with the Iowa Hawkeyes. They're hoping to maybe get a bonus year of eligibility for him as well. He's playing outside linebacker after being a middle guy, and it took a while for him to get there. And then in the middle, Jay Higgins. So you lose Jack Campbell, again, a first rounder from the defense, middle linebacker a year ago. Higgins has come in, one of the top tacklers in the country. Haven't really missed a beat at that spot. And he's kind of the heartbeat of this team. Unfortunately, won't be able to see Cooper DeJean. He is an All-American. He is a stud. He is a cornerback that is worth the price of admission, both as a returner and what he does shutting down one side of the field, as he was injured about a month back in practice. But he won't be out there. Fundamentally sound. And the defensive coordinator, Phil Parker, where he started was a defensive back coach. Same thing you're going to see here. Fundamentally sound, not making mistakes. They're going to let you dink and dunk. If you are very patient, if you're willing to take a 13-play drive and march at 85 yards, you can do that against the Iowa defense. But for the last 25 years, they have bet on most college quarterbacks are not willing to do that. They're going to take a shot. They're going to make a mistake, and that's when Iowa makes them pay.
What Tennessee's going to do is that they're going to throw screens. They're going to throw screens, and then they're going to take a shot. So that's what Joe Milton does. Even with Hendon Hooker, that's what this offense did. The screen game's always been a big part of this offense. So I'll be intrigued. I mean, I'm one of those football nerds that loves defense, so I'm pumped up. I mean, I cover Tennessee. I don't get to watch a lot of Iowa football, so I'm pumped up to watch this defense get after it. And I'm pumped up to see how this defense kind of alters and adjusts to this up-tempo offense for Tennessee, because, you can say teams run up-tempo, but Tennessee's up-tempo is a little bit different for sure. When talking about storylines for Tennessee, it's kind of like who's going to be out there. And as you gave the rundown on defense, I'll give the rundown on Tennessee's defense. What you've researched for Tennessee in the regular season about Tennessee's secondary, wad it up and throw it in the trash, because no starter from Tennessee's secondary is going to be playing in this football game. You've got Kamal Haddon, who was on his way to an All-American season. He's injured. He's been out for about half the season. That's unfortunate. Danico Slaughter, cornerback, transfer portal. You've got, I take that back. Gabe Judy Lawley's going to play in this football game, so you'll have one cornerback that plays in this game. He'll be out there. But Tamari McDonald in the transfer portal, he's a star player. Wesley Walker, who's a safety, injured. He wasn't going to play anyway. He's in the transfer portal. Jalen McCullough is going to be in this game, so you'll have 2 veterans there. But it just feels like the entire room is out. But so you'll have Gabe Judy Lawley and Jalen McCullough at corner and safety, and that's pretty much it. You had a lot of turnover in the defensive backfield. So that's kind of the storyline. I expect a true freshman to be starting at the other cornerback opposite of Gabe Judy-Lally, and that's Ricky Gibson. I expect a reserve and Andre Turrentine to get the start at safety. I expect a sophomore in Jordan Thomas to get the start at star for Tennessee at that nickelback spot. So that's very much a watch as the week goes on and kind of track personnel and see kind of who is lined up where, because there's been so much turnover. So secondary is one thing. At linebacker, Tennessee's big transfer portal addition from BYU, Keenan Peely, played one football game, then tore his tricep, and he did not play the rest of the year. So Aaron Beasley and a lot of young guys, and that's going to be the same in the bowl game. Aaron Beasley and Elijah Herring, Jeremiah T-Lander, a couple of injuries of that group, but that group's just been okay. Defensive line took a step up this year. James Pierce on one side, second in the SEC, 8.5 sacks, a really good player. The other side, Tyler Barron, 6 sacks, entered the transfer portal. He won't play in this game. On the interior, you've got Amari Thomas, Bryson Easton. You've got Omar Norman-Lott, who has 6.5 sacks. Tennessee's defensive line got after it this year, and Tennessee will play a lot of guys in the defensive front, 10 to 12 guys. Just kind of what Rodney Gardner does to keep them all fresh. So you do have some big-time guys who won't be playing in this game, such as a lot of starters in the secondary, Tyler Barron at defensive end. But overall, Tennessee does play a lot of guys on defense anyway, so especially in the front seven. So it's kind of like it's not anything new, coming into this football game. I do want to hit the reset here. When we come back, we'll get into keys of the game, score predictions. We'll take a look and see what FanDuel thinks about this football game. All that and more. That is coming up next right here on Locked On Vols and Locked On Hawkeyes. All right, let's finish this crossover edition off here on this Christmas morning, Monday. Hope everyone's having a great holiday with you and yours. FanDuel has Tennessee as an 8.5-point favorites with the total. Goodness gracious! And again, Tennessee's scoring's been down this year. They led the nation in scoring last year at 46 points a game, and they're way down there at like 31 points per game this year, I believe. But the total for this game is 36.5. Goodness gracious. I don't think I've ever seen. You're probably used to those low totals. I'm not. What do you think about that? Tennessee being an 8.5-point favorite and the total being at 36.5.
It seems high because we've had totals now in the 20s for the better part of a month. During the month of November, the numbers were down there. We're talking historic lows. And here's the thing. Every single time, they'd hit under, including in the Big Ten championship game. Now, that one was aided by Iowa not putting anything up on the board, and that's been the case, unfortunately, against the two good opponents that they face during the course of this season with the goose egg against Penn State and Michigan. But, the total, I mean, it's been an annuity now going on for 3 years, that Iowa unders, and you're going to make a whole lot of money. And I don't see that changing in this one. A lot of when we saw the matchup come up, and it was a little bit of surprise. I mean, with Ole Miss moving up into the New Year's Six, you guys shifting into this role, a lot of people were excited to see Ole Miss. It's a team that we haven't seen before in a bowl game. Of course, we've seen you way back in the day, 1982 in the Peach Bowl, recently in what we call the Hawk Slayer Bowl, as we got clubbed in that one. We had kick returners trying to throw the ball forward as they're falling out of bounds. It's just an absolute unmitigated disaster in that one. It did lead to some pretty good things and some changes in Iowa football after that one. But when you look at this one and you look at totals, it's just been completely different for Iowa. I still maintain, you talked about the defense, and my question is how Iowa's going to move the ball. Really, their most likely part of it is running the football, hitting on some big plays. And that's how they went on the road and beat Wisconsin. A couple of big plays in the running game. That was the way that they got it done there. A couple other games, Nebraska late in the season, on the road again, they did it by running the football. I want to get, is Tennessee susceptible to the big play in the run game? Because that's likely where it's going to come from, is one of the three really talented running backs for Iowa, hitting a big gainer, hitting even an 80-yarder. They've done that a couple of different times this year. Because the only other way they move the football in the passing game is with Titans. Not a whole lot of deep stuff there. And their best wide receiver, an Ohio State transfer, top 100 kid from 2 years ago, redshirt freshman Caleb Brown, he's kind of your little slot guy, right? He's a guy that's going to catch the quick passes. He can turn it up and get 15. He's not going to turn it up and get 85, though. So that's how Iowa is. Has Tennessee been susceptible to the big plays in the run game? Because I think that's the only way that Iowa's going to sustainably be able to move the football.
Yeah, Tennessee's been really good against the run. I mean, not been perfect. They let down at Florida beginning of the season, they let a Trevor Etienne a 65-yard touchdown run. They allowed a long touchdown run at Alabama. But if memory serves me correct, I mean, those might be the only two explosive long, rushing touchdown scores. There might be some more, but Tennessee was second in the SEC against the run this year. I think 22nd overall in the country, giving up about 111 yards on the ground. Pretty good run team. It improved much through the air, but like last year, it was really good against the run because you could do whatever you wanted to through the air against Tennessee. Tennessee was much better through the air, defending the pass this year, so those stats kind of even out a little bit. But where Tennessee gets in trouble is like when the linebackers over pursue, when they overrun things and they allow cutback crease lane and all that, and then they get to the second, third level. We've seen Tennessee give up some big time gains like that, over the season. And of course, I'm forgetting his name right now, but I mean the Division II running back in Missouri, Cody Schrader, he torched Tennessee. Yeah. He might have had one long run. That's probably another one. I mean, overall he had a big day, but he might have had one long explosive run. But overall, he found some success. But to your question, I mean, Tennessee's been pretty good against the run this year, and that's been a really, really good part of their defense. And that brings up another point. I think a storyline for Tennessee in this one is, if you score 14 to 17 points, I think you're in good position to win this football game. In order to do that, take the pressure off a little bit, going up against good defense, do what you do best, and that is run the football. But Trent, I'll tell you, huge opt-out. This is a big one. Jalen Wright declaring for the NFL draft. He's not playing in this football game. Jabari Small not playing in this football game. So you are getting the third head of the three-headed monster in the backfield, and Dylan Sampson, he'll play. And then Tennessee will play multiple running backs. Your other running back in this one's going to be a true freshman in Cam Seldon, who didn't get any carries outside of mop-up duty this year. So that's a huge storyline for Tennessee. Wants to run the football. It'll have Dylan Sampson, but no Jalen Wright and no Jabari Small. So that'll be really big against, obviously, an Iowa defense that plays really, really good. I do have another question real quick. I know we're about to run out of time, but I did want to squeeze this in. Let's give the people what they want. Tell me about your punter, because he, Troy Taylor, correct? Is that his name?
Tory Taylor, yep.
Tory Taylor. Ray Guy Award winner, which is given out to the nation's best punter. Really, really good. He knows Tennessee's punter, Jackson Ross. Both of those guys come from the Pro Kick Academy. And they're both Aussies, and so I thought that was really, really interesting how they're friends. Now Taylor's a couple years older, but what a weapon! I mean, you never want your best player to be your punter, but I mean, what a freaking weapon that Taylor is for Iowa.
Well, and we've had the T-shirts and the jokes here. Punting is winning and those kind of things, because he is incredible, and he really is. We've seen some good punters. I go way back in the day. Reggie Roby, who played in the NFL for a long time with the Dolphins mostly. I mean, he was incredible. And Hayden Fry, he's one of the first guys that he talked about recruiting was a punter. That's just kind of how things are here in Iowa, and they have to win in the margins. They have to win, those areas and the hidden yards, and that's the thing that doesn't show up when you look at this Iowa team. And if you're a Tennessee fan seeing them from the first time, you're like, well, how do they do that? How do you win 10 games even against a crappy schedule? How do you do that? And it's those little things. It's the hidden yardage. And you watch Tory Taylor. Now, Cooper DeJean, we mentioned him as a punt returner and as a cornerback, and he'll be a first-round NFL draft pick coming up this April. One of the best things, and maybe the best thing that he is on the football field, is as a gunner. And him not being out there has been impactful over the final month of the season. There's been plenty of times where Tory Taylor hit the ball at the 4-yard line. Normally, it's Cooper DeJean either waiting right there to catch it, knock it back, get around a guy trying to block him. He was so good at that, and he's not going to be out there. And because of that, we've seen a couple of balls that have filtered in there. Directional punting, power, he's got it all. He's got kind of all the facets that you look for in a punter. He's old, he's goofy, he's Australian. I'm sure he's doing real well in college. I'm sure he's having a good time there as a guy in his 20s, having a real good time in Iowa City. But overall, he's worth the price of admission. He really is. There's going to be one of those moments and you just kind of shake your head and say, he did it again. He pinned somebody inside the 2-yard line. They've won games because of that field position. That's what he's going to do. Mentioned special teams, though. That's a margin that Iowa normally has to not just win, but dominate, and they do it more times than not. The problem over the last month of the season, though, was their field goal kicking. If you watch that Black Friday game against Nebraska, one of the wildest, most boring 57 minutes of football that you're ever going to find. followed by the craziest 3 minutes of football right after that. Both teams, their own ineptitude offensively, turning it back over to themselves. They go with Drew Stevens, who kicked all season long. And all of a sudden, in a tie game, to win it, a 38-yard field goal attempt, they trot out this kid that walked on in August. Nobody knew him. I didn't know him. I say I have to know the Iowa football roster, right? Every single guy, except for this guy that comes trotting out. He was a fifth-year guy from Central Michigan. He goes out there, knocks in the field goal. Now, he didn't have a whole lot to it. He's not going to be able to kick more than probably a 41, 42-yarder. But Drew Stevens was, a lot of people thought, an All-American candidate early in the season. He missed a bunch of kicks. He was kicking the ball out of bounds on kickoff. So that's another thing that Iowa, and you need to look at, because if Iowa doesn't dominate special teams, that's how they have even a chance in this game against Tennessee. If it's even or they lose special teams, there's no way they can win this football game.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not going to win 2 of the 3, if you're going to be so poor on one third of the phase of the game, and that's offensively, you've got to make up for it, and you do defensively, and you got to be decisive on special teams. You're going to win football games, and obviously Iowa is, because Iowa's won 10 games routinely up there, despite having a lackluster offense, to put it mildly. Yeah, I'm excited for this one, man. I think it's tortoise in the hare. I think it's 2 completely different styles of football. I think I'm so intrigued to see this defense go up in this against this Tennessee offense. This, again, like I said earlier, this is not the Tennessee offense the last couple of years. It's come back down to earth a little bit. Joe Milton is not Hendon Hooker, but Tennessee can still run. Tennessee's got a good offensive line, and Joe Milton can still make you pay. I mean, he's still a football player, and he's still got a cannon of an arm. I'm really intrigued to see this game kind of play out and everything. So, with that being said, Trent, kind of what are you thinking for this game? How do you see it's going to go? Do you think Tennessee, who covers the 8.5? Is the over/under going to hit? How do you see this playing out?
To start, I watched plenty of Tennessee football. I've never been a big Joe Milton fan going back to his days in Michigan. Strong arm, him and my radio partner, we've argued about this guy now for the past 5 years and what he can be. And obviously he's probably not got to the heights that he thought they were going to. So I've always, not the negative against Milton, just been on the other side. And he's got to give Iowa a couple. If I was, again, going to win this game, got to play well defensively, dominate special teams, and probably need Joe Milton to give him a couple. Pick 6, those kind of things. That's the chance. I don't see it. I do see probably a turnover force, that kind of thing. But this offensive issue is real. The passing game is just a non-starter. Luke Lachey, their talented tight end, who was lost earlier this season. There was hope maybe he'd be back for the bowl game. That's not going to be the case here. I got Tennessee pulling away late and winning this one 24-3. It's going to be a late touchdown that makes it a little bit uglier. Again, it's just these offensive woes. I am so beat down by how bad this Iowa offense is, not just against good teams, but even bad teams, that I just can't see Iowa putting enough up there. Vols get the late pull away and an easy victory in the end.
Yeah, I'm going to take Tennessee as well to cover. I can't believe I'm going to say this. I'm going to take the under, though. I mean, this Tennessee has struggled to move the football against some really good defenses in times. There was against Texas A&M, Tennessee won 20-13. Joe Milton threw for 100 yards. Tennessee ran for 200 and got a special team score. So it was one of those where the offense was nowhere to be found, or the passing offense was nowhere to be found, but everything else really kind of enabled that win. I don't think it'll be to this degree, but I think special teams are going to have to help out Tennessee, and I think Tennessee's defense is going to have to help out as well. I don't think it's going to take a whole lot of scoring to win this football game, but I do think it's going to be challenging, obviously, because Iowa is so good on the defensive end. Give me Tennessee to win 21-10. 21-10, so the under still in play. Tennessee covers the 8.5, and we will see what happens. Eric? Say what?
5 safeties for the Hawkeyes?
Yeah, maybe so. Boy, wouldn't that be a storyline? All right, man. Had a blast. Hope you have a Merry Christmas. Hope everybody listening and watching us has a Merry Christmas. This has been a Locked On Crossover Edition. He is Trent Condon, Locked On Hawkeyes. I am Eric Cain, Locked On Vols. Merry Christmas, everybody, and we'll see what happens. Tennessee and Iowa, the Citrus Bowl on New Year's Day.